अस्सलाम वालेकुम, वेलकम टू पैसा बोलता विद अंजुम इब्राहिम। इस दफ़ा ख़वातीन हज़रात हमने फिर दोबारा इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फ़ंड की जो रेजिडेंट रिप्रेजेंटेटिव हैं उनको हमने इनवाइट किया है, टेरेसा डबान सांचेज़, और उनके साथ आई एम वेरी हैप्पी टू ऑल्सो हैव एज आ गेस्ट डॉक्टर हफीज़ पाशा साहब, जो कि किसी तारुफ के मोहताज नहीं हैं, फॉर्मर फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर, प्लानिंग मिनिस्ट्री, बहुत सारी मिनिस्ट्रीज़ में रह चुके हैं, एंड ही विल बी इन अ पोजिशन टू डिस्कस एंड to critique if whenever appropriate जो Teresa कहेंगी. Welcome to the show and thank you both for being here at the same time. Teresa, I would like to start with you. Can you give us a sort of a little short presentation on the objective of the program and the basic features, the main features of the program?
Sure. The government's economic program right now is a program that aims at achieving stability and at the same time putting the economy in a path of robust and sustainable growth. And this is very important. For that, there are several options that can be grouped like in three pillars. The first one is fiscal consolidation. The fiscal account needs to be put in a good shape, and that's going to be done by strengthening revenue collections, by working on reducing the circular debt, the losses of public companies, better coordination with provinces, and etc. These are kind of main items on the fiscal front. Then that will help to put the debt in a public debt in a downward path. By the way, this is very important. A second pillar is strengthening the monetary policy framework of the State Bank of Pakistan with a focus on inflation stability, because inflation is very detrimental for business and for the most vulnerable in the country, and then to transition to a new regime for the exchange rate, and that is more transparent and based on market determination. And the third pillar is to make sure that there is fiscal space in the budget to have social spending needed to protect the most vulnerable in the economy in the case that these adjustments are having a negative impact on the economy.
Okay, all right. Dr. Saab, any rejoinder, if any?
No, let me just start by thanking the International Monetary Fund for having come and supported Pakistan's efforts at stabilization. Some of us had suggested, in fact, that it perhaps would have been better if our government had gone earlier to the International Monetary Fund.
Absolutely.
And that would have given us an earlier opportunity to focus on the fundamental issues that have been identified by Mrs. Sanchez. The program now is operational, and we have already received the first installment of $1 billion, which is substantial and has certainly helped in stabilizing our foreign exchange reserve position. Now, as we move along, clearly this year the focus, as we saw in the budget, has been on a considerable effort at raising revenues. And some of us, of course, are inclined to think that perhaps the targets are somewhat ambitious. But nevertheless, what we do see is wide-ranging tax reform. And I think that is the right priority that the country ought to have adopted, particularly the focus on documentation of transactions and catching tax evasion wherever possible. The other area of focus inevitably has to be the current account deficit. And here, of course, last year we were able to have some degree of success by about 30% reduction in a current account deficit, but we have to do much more.
And that was due mainly to the friendly countries, actually?
I'm talking about the current account deficit.
Okay.
That was mainly due to a cut in imports, because exports didn't grow. The financing, yes, absolutely. A lot of it came through deposits from friendly countries. So now the concern, of course, is whether we can go and achieve much more reduction in the current account deficit. At the end of the day, in a way, our stability will hinge on success on the balance of payments front.
Okay.
And this is where we need to really focus a lot of our effort. And let me also add that the previous program, which we had been moderately successful. But then, of course, what happens is when the fund left, there was a degree of financial, if I may use the word, profligacy, which led to a big increase in the budget deficit. So let's look forward and see if this 3-year program achieves the objectives that it has set for itself, and God willing, if Pakistan is able to succeed, then we will probably move to a higher path of growth.
Okay, and just to remind our viewers about, you talked about profligacy, and which was actually the budget deficit really rose, but Ishaq Dar also followed a policy of manipulation of the exchange rate, which was extremely detrimental to our exports, and they made our imports more attractive. So that policy needs to be, I think, in one sense, never ever to be followed again. I think I think Teresa would support that. ख़वातीन हज़रात, अब हम एक छोटी सी ब्रेक लेंगे. Please stay with us. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let me throw a question to both of you. The document, the staff agreement, and that's uploaded on your website, that indicates that the government would need $38.6 billion more of external financing during the duration of the program, which is 39 months. Do you think that amount, which is a lot higher than the PML Nawaz government, for example, incurred in 39 months, do you think that would make us the debt sustainable, how would you achieve that?
I think that the way of looking at that figure is slightly different. So the situation right now is that Pakistan has important gross financial requirement for the future, for the medium term. And this is derived from decisions that were made in the past, and also current imbalances right now, like the current account deficit that still remains high. There is a need to finance this current account deficit, because the country will need to continue imports. Imports are necessary for machinery, for oil, etc. There is a need also to pay back part of the debt that was incurred in the past. Pakistan needs to continue serving that debt to preserve a good credit worthiness. And on the top of that, there is need of resources, external resources, to rebuild the balance sheet of the central bank. The State Bank of Pakistan needs to have a strong level of reserves to protect the country for the shocks. No? So because of that needs that we can more or less calculate or estimate it, there is a need for Pakistan to identify resources. The IMF program with the economic program of the authority that is strong, is credible, and is the right one, has been managed to identify that the support from others, not only the fund, World Bank, ADB, and other bilaterals, in this amount of 35. That provides a lot of comfort. Provide a lot of comfort that the strategy that has been put now on the table is achievable and is implementable.
Just one question about the debt. Now, this 38.6, does it include existing debt as well, or does it not? I mean, the rollover, for example, the friendly countries have rolled over the debt. So does that include that, or is that over and above that?
The 38, Emilio identify all of the resources that are available to Pakistan in the current policies, meaning agreement with bilateral lenders like China, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, that have show an intention, a strong intention to continue helping Pakistan and to during the period of the program, and even beyond the period of the program. And there's some assumptions about that support provided by them, and also the portfolio of other multilaterals like the World Bank and the ADB that also are going to be present in helping Pakistan.
Okay, Doctor.
No, I think the key thing, as has been highlighted by Mrs. Sanchez, is there are two components of our external financing requirements. One is, of course, the current account deficit, which we have to finance, and then, of course, there are the external debt repayment obligations. For example, this year, just this morning, we were told by the minister that Pakistan will have to make a debt repayment of $10 billion. So this amount is actually likely to peak next year. And when you take all this into account, I think the first estimate is that the country will need anywhere between $70 to $75 billion overall of external financing. And clearly already we have identified over 38.
External financing for the next 39 months, or external financing?
I'm talking about the program period.
The program
39
period.
months.
Okay.
During this period, of course, already a substantial amount has been lined up, which includes rollover by our
China
existing
and Saudi Arabia
friends and so on.
UAE and right.
And in addition, new flows has been identified by Mr. Sanchez. The key thing here is to ensure two things. One is that we are able to bring down the current account deficit substantially, so that our financing requirement over time reduces, and that is what provides for stabilization.
Okay.
So this year's target is almost to reduce the current account deficit by about half. And if we were able to do that, then we can keep it more or less near that level over the next 2 years, which is about $6 billion or so.
Which is doable, right?
Which is, I like to think, is doable. And of course, as Mr. Sanchez has identified, we will try to avoid cutting into essential imports like machinery and petroleum products and so on. The key thing here, it seems to me, and this is what worries me, is the growth of exports. And unfortunately, despite substantial incentives, including a fairly large devaluation of our rupee, last year exports didn't grow. And the assumption this year in the staff agreement report is that they should grow by at least 8% or so. And that is a very modest percentage.
But the level is very low.
Very
so I think
low,
basically
and
that's
the
why
issue is also one of growth. So unless exports start growing,
actual GDP growth, you mean?
yes,
Okay.
yes, as a percentage of the GDP, then we really will not be able to stabilize and strengthen our external position.
Okay.
That, to me, in a sense, is the bottom line.
Okay.
And if we are able to do that, then the projected requirements, financing requirements, seem to be feasible, and we should be able to, over the 3-year period, not have a situation where the debt explodes, but on the other hand, we have a situation that at the end of the 3 years, we have enough reserves. I mean, we are targeting for 3.5 to 4 month reserves by the end of the program. If that were to happen, then Pakistan goes onto a path of high growth.
Okay. I've had Teresa on my program for a couple of times, and I'm not going to talk on your behalf, but you did mention during those programs that you will recalibrate and you will reassess as the program proceeds and as the figures don't go according to plan. So exports, what if exports don't rise as he fears? What plans do you reckon the IMF would support?
At the end of the day, as I explained, the goal of the program is to put the public debt on a downward path, to rebuild reserve in the central bank, and to keep the country stable on the external front. That will going to be a combination of factors: export, imports. Let's see how remittances behave. There are several factors, but one factor that is important is because stabilizations will be achieved, confidence will be rebuilt, export will increase, because at the end of the day, what's important is investment is increasing. Okay. Export are going to increase the moment that the business community has a plan to grow, to expand their factories, to have a business plan, to have an expansion to engage with external markets. So this is something that we believe the private sector in Pakistan is quite entrepreneurship, is very dynamic. I have been visiting most of them across the country. The moment the conditions for investment are there, and clarity about the future is there, and investment is triggered, activities like export could respond.
Will actually respond.
Yeah. Plus the gain in competitiveness that could be achieved with a better management of the monetary policy and the exchange rate in an environment in which inflation is going to be moderated, and the exchange rate is going to provide the right signaling about relative prices.
Right, inshallah. We'll take a short break here. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Teresa, I want to ask, which is an offshoot of what you said, that business investment would pick up. Right now, the large-scale manufacturing sector growth is appallingly low. Actually, it's in the negative, and at the same time, there is the positive impact of the fund program, which was visible in previous programs, that has not been visible with the private sector. Why do you think that is, and do you think it's just a time lag?
I think that the stabilization gains will be visible soon. Actually, you look at the country programs, that the documents that support the country strategy for Pakistan. The current assumption is that there could be a certain slowdown in growth because of the adjustment efforts, but the slowdown is something that is resulting from resources that need to be reallocated in a different way.
Okay.
Meaning that Pakistan is now an economy that has been growing substantially in the last few years, but with too much focus on activities related to consumptions, very little related to investment, a lot of activity related to importing, and then very little to local production.
But that was China-Pakistan economic corridor as well, which was actually fueling imports, but at the same time it was infrastructure development.
I mean, yes or no? The effort to import because of CPEC is visible, but there was an increase in imports across the board when you look at the different categories. And the issue is not only that. The issue is that because the policy were unbalanced, there is a burden on local productions. Local production became not competitive. You know, then why to produce something locally if importing it is easier? So this is the thing that now are changing with the policies under the program. In the transition, this reallocation of resources may translate in some slowdown in the economy. That's what we are now assuming. But this is something that is a reallocation of resources that is necessary for a focus more on investment, less on import, and more on local production, less on consumptions, and then the economy could grow back. Could go back to growth in a sustainable and balanced way. That's important. Okay.
Can I just say that the important consideration here, it seems to me, in the short run, is to ensure that whatever capacity we have in the export sector is mobilized. And unfortunately, what has happened is that while there was some increase in volumes last year, while the prices in fact didn't rise as much and therefore the exports didn't grow, there are still sectors where there is potential for growth. And Pakistan has to, with all due respects, get out of this fixation of textiles and focus on what I would call emerging and nascent exports.
Okay.
You'll be amazed. There are 27 items in our export bundle which have exports between $50 to $150 million.
Okay.
This is where your potential is, and many of them are in the SME sector.
Okay.
I mean, you'll
small
be
and
amazed.
medium enterprise
Even
sector.
today, South Korea's almost 40% of its exports are by SMEs.
Okay.
So SMEs is one of the key.
Should be the growth.
And
should
today
be the
there's an
engine of growth.
interesting supplement on SMEs in the newspaper.
That's right. That's right. In my newspaper, Business
The other
Record,
thing which
that's
I'd like to add, if I may, is today's announcement also of the establishment of the CPEC authority. This is a measure we had been recommending for some years. This is essential, like we have the National Highway Authority, which has done a good job in development of highways in Pakistan, to provide for a very strong focus. And one of the critical first things that this authority must do is to make the special economic zones operational.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to have you guys for the next program because obviously we are far from finished. I've run out of time. ख़वातीन हज़रात, आपने सुना कि जो IMF का प्रोग्राम है जो टेरेसा ने हमें बड़े क्लियरली और सक्सेंटली बताया है, वो उसका जो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं उसका कोई nobody can actually argue against those objectives. और ये मेरे ख्याल में एग्रीमेंट है डॉक्टर हफीज़ पाशा की There are some kind of concerns about exports, whether exports will actually rise or not rise as a consequence of what is happening in Pakistan. And the fund program is obviously interlinked with other things like CPEC and India Pakistan के भी जो relations हैं उसमें भी impact आएगा. But we have to wait and see that the actual program itself is much better. Please do tune in for next week's program too, because I'm going to have both of them again. इजाज़त दीजिए, खुदा हाफिज़.